Hey everyone, I'm Sid Shah. I'm coming to you from Chicago. So it's great that this was made virtual and we could all like connect. This is pretty exciting. I work on the realm of Vision Zero, so I am a consultant to Chicago DOT. But I work for Sam Schwartz Consulting, if anyone knows of them. Um, and I'm a kind of an urban planner plus engineer. So it's exciting, but in-house at CDOT, but nothing that I'm saying, just as a disclaimer, is either CDOT's position or Sam Schwartz's position or anything like that. I just wanted to, so this has been, on my mind for a bit now, this topic, and I just wanted to like throw it out and hear from people as to what they think about it. Um, so as I work mostly on Vision Zero, what I do is a lot of crash analysis um, and looking at who is the person that are getting hit, etc., and who is the person that was like behind the wheels and stuff like that. Um, I don't think we think a lot about what are the cars that are hitting the people. So, let's make one thing clear. Whatever is happening is because cars are hitting people. It can be other cars. It can be it can be pedestrians. It can be bicyclists. But it is these cars that are hitting the people. And I don't think we have come at a stage where we are talking about, hey, why do we let these cars hit people? Um, so I, like thinking of where I don't want to create a false equivalency between like cars and guns, but guns are much worse. But when we talk about like gun policy and stuff like that, we don't focus on who has the guns. We don't focus on the demographics of people who have the gun. We don't focus on what triggered them to use the gun as much. When we are taking a policy approach, we focus on the guns themselves. We focus on we focus on legislating the guns themselves. I don't means if cars are the way with which people are getting hit, I don't understand why there's not as much focus on like what should be done to make these cars not hit people. For example, Ford kind of made this business decision to stop producing sedan and only focus on trucks. Now it's very much clear as to these kind of trucks and stuff like that are more dangerous for people biking or people walking on the streets. So I had like two questions that I wanted to like put it out there and hear from people. One thing was, so what change do you think do we need to ask for? There's like enough discussion we have had in abstract about what AVs, what will happen when AVs come into play, and stuff like that. Now I think we need to get to a point where we ask, so if there is a new type of vehicle that's going to come on the streets, what should be the features that they should have? What should be the baseline? So one question I wanted to put out there was, what do we ask from vehicles? What are the specific things? And second was, how do we make this change happen? I'm less expert into how do we make this change happen, but I wanted to hear from you guys if we are tasked with creating guidelines, for vehicles, what should we ask?
I think it's good to differentiate between like the two different types of fatal collisions. Like one, you talk about like an urban environment hitting pedestrians, but then also having the vehicles prepared for like collisions on an interstate where they're traveling at 60 miles an hour. So I think that might have facilitated the push to larger vehicles. It is unfortunate that these larger vehicles in urban environments are more dangerous to pedestrians. That was like one of the reasonings behind it, from what I can tell. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not a vehicle designer, but even before we get to AVs, I think ADAS goes a long way. Advanced driver assist features, the automatic braking, the lane keep assist. I think that's going to go a long way in getting us closer to fully autonomous vehicles. It'll take a very long time, but as more people get comfortable with like, oh my God, this lane keep assist saved my life, or I was going to hit that pedestrian, but the thing kicked in. There'll be a lot of stories coming out about that as they become more popular. I thought that there was like some kind of policy in 2022 or like 2023 coming out that mandated all new cars had to have an ADAS system on it of some sort. I could be wrong. I could have just misinterpreted that. But yeah, policy to enforce ADAS. It's another thing too. I'll come back to it. I have a lot to say about this. I'm so very interested, so I'll stop there for now.
I totally agree. Means I guess one of the baselines, I'm not an expert on this either, so one of the baselines is that, do you know what kind of things are already out there? Like, where are we in terms of technology?
The ADAS, it's pretty standard on most new vehicles. What's alarming to me, though, is the average age of a car on American roads right now is about 10 to 11 years. So if like you think of like, oh yeah, there's like new cars that are like 0 to 1 years that have those features. The average age is 11 years. There must be a hell of a lot of 20-year-old cars on our roads today. I mean, I know I'm driving a like 13-year-old Honda. Yeah, so it's a hard shift to make and to get these safety features standard.
Yeah, that's right. Means if anyone else wanted to jump in, please do.
I think that there's one thing, since I'm a traffic and ITS engineer, and one thing on the ITS side, in terms of connected vehicles, which are closely to automated vehicles, is that I know there's been a lot of discussion in terms of how, like, which way vehicles will communicate with each other, whether it's DSRC versus I'm blanking out.
V2X.
V2X, like 5G, basically.
Can you repeat that?
So there's the way vehicles communicate with each other. Right now there's a big debate. There's like two camps. One is DSRC, which is dedicated short-range communication. And that's a wavelength reserved by the FCC for specifically vehicle communication. They did it back in the 90s, which is pretty impressive. They were thinking that far. But so that's just for that. And then and so that was like the assumption that like that's how vehicles would communicate with each other. That's how they would communicate with infrastructure, traffic lights, all sorts of things. But then recently, with the push for 5G, there's been a much certain companies are deciding to go 5G instead, which I don't really understand. But I'm guessing there must be some relationship between them and the communications companies. But in terms of a government perspective, it doesn't seem to make so much sense to me, because they're going to have to pay for that. I mean, DSRC is free. Meanwhile, you'll have to pay to use the bandwidth of a 5G. But there's I know Toyota committed to DSRC because they said it was going to be safer and it's ready now. Versus like I forget what other companies have chosen 5G instead. But so then right now you almost have like half the automakers are choosing one language and half are choosing the other, and so it's going to hurt safety of pedestrians and anyone else if they can't communicate with each other. That's definitely like getting a common language that can be used for all. Definitely important. Yeah,
the debate really sucks. It's gotten like the debate came up now because communications companies wanted to take this bandwidth for like more like internet access, so you could watch cat videos and crap. And this is the 5.9 gigahertz band. Yeah, like Andrew was saying, like there's the divide among players in the field right now. So I think a lot of like the big advocacy groups don't really touch it and help it along because there's the divide in the industry. And from what I've heard, is that because of this, nothing really is going to get done on connected vehicles, and that's just in terms of vehicles talking to each other and then vehicles talking to infrastructure. Then nothing substantial will get done on it until 5G is more widely available, which is a huge question mark.
Yeah, that's a good point. And towards your earlier point, Kevin, about the age of cars and stuff like that, what I was thinking was like, what I'm expecting is down the line, mobility would be a service, so no one would be like owning the cars, right? Individuals wouldn't be owning the cars, and it would mostly be like fleets that would be owning the car, and then it would make it easier for government to like regulate these things. Means yes. So the premise of this discussion is that we are moving towards a point where it's more like fleets rather than individual car owners, because otherwise, of course, I agree, it's hard to it's hard to ensure that every vehicle has that same standards and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's. I agree. Like we probably will move to like a closer to a fleet model. The way I talk about it though is like in this city, like where I live now, Washington D.C. Like a car is a nuisance. Like it's such a pain in the ass to own one of these things. You got to like worry about parking. Insurance is crazy expensive. Where you have to get it broken in. Tickets, speeding tickets, parking tickets, cameras. It's terrible. But where I'm at now, I'm moved into my sister's because of this whole Corona thing in rural Pennsylvania. And like here, a car is an extension of yourself. It takes you 20 minutes to get anywhere just because of distance. In DC, it takes at least 20 minutes just because of traffic. I guess the point I'm getting to is that the fleet model, I think, will definitely work. We'll see in cities, but as far as like individual car ownership, like leaving a place like this in Pennsylvania, I don't see it, like even in my lifetime.
That's a good point. The density affects a lot of things.
Yeah.
Fleet model will only work for urban places and stuff like that. And I think that's another mismatch wherein these kind of regulations are kind of be set at the federal level, but it's the cities kind of that need it most. And it's hard for cities to legislate or regulate these kind of things. So that's where most of the big cities that I know have some sort of Vision Zero policies and are interested in this, but it's hard for them to even think about doing this because they don't regulate these things. Like in Chicago, we are trying to as simple as side guards on large trucks. We know side guards prevent bike fatalities, prevent anyone from going under the wheel and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But the only thing the city can do is be like, whoever is licensed with the city needs to have the side guards to get the license. But it stops there. The city cannot legislate. Like Chicago is a big trucking hub. You have vehicles coming from all over the country through Chicago. The city cannot do anything about it. The city cannot prevent a truck from not coming into the city because it does not have side guards. So it's kind of designing. That's another point that I wanted to know more about is that if we want things to happen, like what level of government, would this happen? Yeah, would this happen at?
Yeah, no, it's a great point. I hope that one thing that's going on with this corona situation, and as horrible as it is and scary as it is that it is an opportunity to change and relook at how we do things. Like some of the ideas that are presented here, like a transportation camp, like are really brilliant. Like I think we could like really carry them forward. Like especially like things like revitalizing sidewalks and walkability in urban environments. I think that's going to be crucial in rebuilding business in urban environments. But again, what I'm getting off, sorry, I got so many sidetracks, but what I'm getting to is like this is an opportunity to rethink the way we do things and like repackage them. So I think we do have opportunity there.
Yeah, Gerard in the chat mentioned WallPay Center. Are folks aware of WallPay Center? I think they're great, and I think that could be a great vehicle through which you push USDOT, because it's kind of an extension of USDOT and stuff like that. I don't know, Jared, if you are able to like jump in on this conversation, but if you are more familiar with WallPay and if you think that they could like help in this conversation.
I think he's on. Doesn't have audio. I think.
Maybe he's typing. Did he leave? I could speak a little bit about it. Volpe Center, I think, might be led now by Ray Martinez, who was the former head of the FMCSA, and just before he left the FMCSA, Federal Motor Carriers, I think he put in place like rules for ADAS on trucks, like regulations on future trucks having ADAS features. So, like, we do have progressive people in places of power within the DOT.
I always feel like the DOT and FHWA are pretty well prepared to put in a lot of safety features for AVs. Like, I feel like that's part of their process. So, like, I feel like that might not be as much of an issue as, like, pushing for, at least in terms of safety of motorists, like making sure the cars are not always crashing and all that stuff. But, like, in terms of pedestrians, bicyclists, and making them work in cities, like, I think that's going to be, it seems like it would be a much more difficult conversation to have and to try to get, like you were saying, of like side guards. Like FHWA might not care about side guards because it doesn't matter on a highway. So I think it would be an interesting push, like who would push that angle, I guess. It's definitely tough.
Yeah. Do you know? I mean, I was wondering, are there ways that cities can legislate the size of vehicles that come on the city roads?
Maybe by weight.
I think that there's preemption that the state and federal government have over that, but like I don't know. Maybe like weight or. Well, I know the state, like for Pennsylvania, e-scooters are not allowed right now on streets because it's not part of the vehicle code. Like there's no exemption in the vehicle code. If you're not exempt, you have to have all the features of a car. So like technically, a scooter on the street right now would need airbags and turn signals. But whereas like there's an exemption already for like horse and buggies in Pennsylvania because we have horse and buggies. So there's always exemptions.
That's
I don't
insane.
have train of thought though, but
That's insane. That's so funny.
A lot of great advocacy groups up there, like doing work around like specific things like side guards for urban environments. Trying to find the name of it.
In Philly?
What was that?
In Philly or?
Oh, they lobby on the federal level, but then I think they also have local chapters as well.
I know Together for Safer Roads is
Maybe
an
that's it.
organization that does a lot of this work, and they have an interesting model where it's actually funded by a lot of like fleet companies. So it's funded by companies like PepsiCo, UPS, uh, yeah, what's that big beer company? ABN
AB
Ev,
InBev.
ABN Bev. So it's like it's funded by these kind of companies. Um, so I think that's another frontier through which you can push change, is that you can ask these fleet companies to kind of adhere to a higher standard, which would then make manufacturers kind of produce such vehicles. Because I don't think Ford cares about anyone else than the drivers in the Ford vehicle. Yeah.
Sorry, I'm still looking for the name of this one organization.
Yeah. That's cool. What other features do you think are out there? Like connected vehicles, are there like pedestrian detection systems and stuff like that?
I believe so. I believe some of the ADAS features like specifically call out like pedestrian and cyclists as well.
I've heard of some of like a way to make AVs better with pedestrians and bicyclists is to ping, use Bluetooth or other connected features to ping people's cell phones so we can better accurately track where they are. I don't know if that's standard or if that's done at scale, but I know there's been talks about that. Not sure.
Yeah. That opens a can of worms. Like, what if someone does not have a phone on them? Does that mean they can be killed?
That's why the
cameras should be able to do the job. But then again, like, how do you get the cameras on the vehicles? Like, I think the cell phone usage, like pinging someone, is like an easy way to fix it because you could just have a device, put the device on the vehicle. Maybe it is even like it's just a cell phone, and it has an app that runs that, and it could tell where other cell phones are in the area. I know they can definitely do it with cameras, but getting the cameras on the vehicles is tough.
Mm-hmm. One thing I wonder is, like, in cities, this is one thing that's been on my mind with AVs is that, like, what happens when people in cities know that the cars are not going to stop for, or they are going to stop for them. Like, if consistently, it's like it's so good for pedestrians. It's like, why wouldn't you just cross the middle of the street and like cross?
Yeah, that's a big problem we think about a lot. Is there's going to need to be a pedestrian education element to this. We've already seen like cases of the autonomous shuttle buses that are operating in like college universities, like people jumping out in front of them, throwing beer bottles at them, climbing up on top of them and trying to surf them. Like, these are things that actually happen. It's unfortunate, but I think there'll need to be a public education element to it and shift some of the law enforcement from vehicles themselves to pedestrians around that. I think a lot of it will just be like like just the novelty of it. Like, oh my God, there's this autonomous vehicle, let's jump in front of it. You do it, but then like it's not fun after a week.
Yeah. Good points.
So
yeah, no, that is so interesting. And I think in that sense, developing countries offer an interesting framework where, these kind of like in US, people don't just walk on the roads and stuff like that. But that's not the case in India.
Mm-hmm.
Like, a car could jump in front of you anytime. Right? And still, like, people deal with it.
Yeah.
People have developed an intelligence around it. I don't know, it's hard to code, but there is kind of always an understanding of between the pedestrian and the vehicle as to, there's this tug of war contest that you have. You lock eyes with the driver, and based on who is more confident, the other person slows down or stops.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, though there's this implied negotiation that I think is different from city to city. Like even Argo, it's a big AV developer. They partner with Ford and Volkswagen. They test and develop in Miami, DC, Austin, Texas, Pittsburgh. But they say that there's like significant differences in pedestrian behavior just in those 3 cities. A company that's doing cool work around that is Perceptive Automata up in Boston. I think they're formed out of MIT, doing a lot of like facial recognition stuff, like body language recognition. We got a good team up there.
That's very interesting.
I heard of one thing of like some AV companies thinking about ways they can try to, like you were saying, that to have that facial kind of interaction, like that visual of like almost like cars in the movie Cars where their eyes are on the screen, or like have some sort of acknowledgement of like like looking forward versus looking to the side, like I'm going.
Mm-hmm.
But I mean that's a little far out, but it'll be interesting to see if that actually takes off.
Yeah, I think some companies will develop like pedestrian communication systems for the vehicles themselves, so that it's like a text, like a scrolling text, or some kind of audio thing. Yeah, I'm sure we're bound to see that. It'll probably also be used for advertisements when it's not being used to give safety warnings.
Of course.
Yeah. Means the way it happens in Mumbai, I can just throw this out there, is that not a lot of people actually go to the end of the block to actually, go to a crosswalk to cross or something like that. They just cross wherever they want to cross. So the way it is that you make a judgment based on how many vehicles are coming. So you are at the edge of the curb, and you get 1 car pass by, 2 car pass by. The 3rd car, you just like put your hand out there like this, and then you step on the street. It's another level of negotiated based on how much traffic is out there.
Mm-hmm.
If it's just 1 car and it's going at a higher rate of speed, the pedestrian would not jump in the roadway and just let that car go.
Yeah.
Otherwise, if there's like a stream of cars, the pedestrians would be like, I'm just not going to stand here for 5 minutes and not let anyone let me through. I'm just going to put my hand out there and cross.
One way to do it.
It's funny. I mean, this kind of so you of course know this only when you like live there. To the point that you were mentioning, Kevin, like it differentiates between cities to cities. Even in India, like there are cities which are known for worse drivers than other cities and stuff like that. But it was interesting. I also went to Dakar, Senegal, and the negotiation was pretty much similar.
Yeah.
Right? It took me a day or 2 to kind of get into the groove, but then I was like, okay, I'm not in New York anymore. I'm in Dakar. I just need to like step out. I need to like bring my inner Mumbaiite or whatever.
Yeah. Yeah, even in the U.S., like the Miami and D.C. example, like I feel like in D.C. we drive a lot more aggressive in cities, but Miami, they drive so much more aggressive on highways. Like I'm scared to drive down there sometimes.
Yeah. So Gerard says that AVs will have to be culturally aware, and I am so interested in that realm. How does so does that mean that there would be a different AV when that AV comes from Philly versus when that AV comes from New York? Would that AV have like a different characteristic?
Yeah, I guess it comes down to what's programmed in its how the machine learning algorithms come about in it, what scenarios it's seen as it was testing. Yeah, so perhaps like all of those will be combined into like one master AV mind, and it's fluid and it can go from city to city like that. Or there will be city-specific AVs, which is kind of like what we see now with like testing and operating in DC, San Francisco, Tucson, Miami. So right now it is localized and culturally associated with each. But one day they'll all be connected.
Yeah, it's very cool. So you said about this company Perceptive Automator. Like, how did you come across them? What do you? I'm just interested. How did you like come across them?
I met them at the Washington Auto Show in 2019. I think they do some work with Honda. I'll drop their link here. The tagline is "Understanding humans is the hardest problem for autonomous vehicles. We solve it." Yeah, great team there. Like very like I'm trying to find the chat feature here. Very open about what they can do and what they can't do. Yeah, so I guess for background on me, since I feel like I've talked a lot here, sorry. I run the Washington, D.C. Autonomous Vehicles Association, which seeks to educate and empower the public on the benefits of autonomous vehicles.
That makes sense. That makes sense.
So Kevin, you said you're the head of the DC. Okay. So what do you guys? So like, what programs do you have? Like, what do you guys do? Because I'm interested. We don't have anything like that in Philly right now, so I'm curious.
Mm-hmm. So essentially, I like to say we were a supercharged Meetup Group. We out of a Meetup Group, so we hold events to have real discussions or honest discussions on the benefits and limitations of autonomous vehicles. We bring together people from industry, from government, from public interest. So that's always fun. We had a huge one in December with Volkswagen, and then another one in January with Ford. Then we also do active outreach to local government and local business on how autonomous vehicles can benefit them or affect them. So fortunately, we have a very progressive government in DC and very interested in the future of AVs. So that's given us the platform to do outreach in that regard. So we've done like presentations on autonomous shuttles. We'll probably do another one on like how AVs, and like to City Hall, we'll do like a presentation on what does Corona mean, like how can autonomous vehicles help in the Corona situation and future situations like this. We're currently looking at doing a market research study for the summer on like what will consumer behavior look like around the early iterations of autonomous vehicles. DC is emerging as a hotbed for this. We have Argo and Uber AV operations here developing at this stage, and then a lot of autonomous shuttle buses operating throughout the region. So yeah, it's been awesome. I guess more on my background and how I got into it and why I was interested in this panel. I was never a car guy, was never a tech guy, but 2.5 years ago I lost my girlfriend in a car crash. And that wasn't like the only time I had to deal with something like that. When I was 12, my mother was also in a fatal crash. My mother survived, but I grew up seeing my mom struggle with PTSD, and then losing my girlfriend to the exact same thing. Like, I have to do something. So that's how I got involved with transportation, and particularly autonomous vehicles.
I'm so sorry to hear that, but it's great that
Yeah.
you found an outlet to really forward to safety. It's so important. I mean, there's so many who die a year.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Thank you, and thank you for the work you guys do around this. So definitely, it's incredible. Like, I was an accountant before all this, so I just threw myself into it.
Oh, that's amazing. Hey, who do you work for now? Is it are you an accountant still with doing this other stuff part time?
It's a good question. I do a little bit of everything. I did have a day job doing accounting for a while, which I recently quit to on the association, and then I also do some consulting on business and policies related to AVs. And I'm also a grad student too at Georgetown, so a little bit of everything. I'm trying to transition my career to do a strategy on autonomous vehicles, but not too excited about this impending recession.
Yeah, but I do wonder if, you kind of mentioned, AVs in this time, people are worried about catching COVID in transit. I mean, AVs could be filling a huge gap. So.
Yeah, it's a win and lose for AVs. They, it's like everyone here in the whole transportation space is a little bit worried about the effects of Corona on taking mass transit. It's the same thing with taking a shared autonomous vehicle ride hail. However, this has shown that we need a more resilient, dynamic supply chain. So I think there's more opportunity for autonomous trucking. Also delivery service like Neuro. Neuro's made leaps and bounds in the last few months. They're probably the leaders in autonomous delivery. Starship as well. And now we're starting to see a lot of AV companies that were specializing in shuttles try to hurry up and transition over to a delivery service. We'll see how that pans out. I'm not too excited about business models that flip like that, but it's the times. It's the time. So I get why we're doing it.
Yeah. Means, what do you think about, do AVs need to have 4 vehicles? Can't AV just be AV segways, AV bikes?
Possibly, yeah. I would love to see an autonomous Zamboni. I'm a hockey player, so we'd love to see the ice get done faster. Just as soon as we start on the ice, it just gets right on there, right off. I think that'd be awesome.
That would be the simplest of things I can imagine.
Yeah.
That's a Roomba.
Yeah. A giant Roomba. Funny.
That needs to happen already. Yeah.
Where are we at on time? How long is this? Okay, we got a few minutes, I think.
We have 10 minutes. No, 5 minutes. Just kidding.
Yeah. Were there any other questions you had, Sid?
Yeah, this was great. I'm glad you jumped onto this because I definitely wasn't an expert or anything. But it's great to have this conversation, learn more about this. The first session I attended was how to talk to a bureaucrat and stuff like that.
How was that?
That was very fun, and I want to connect this to that. In that, there I learned how to talk to a bureaucrat, and now I learn what do I want to talk about, and now I want to merge those two things.
Love it.
So yeah, that would be great, and it kind of talked about what you are doing, Kevin. Is that you need to have a voice, and a voice comes when you organize. You have these associations and stuff like that, and you can take different routes. You can be that activist route that's just always in opposition, or you can drive the change with conversations with people. And bureaucrats are not inherently bad people. They want to do good. They just these conversations, they just aren't aware of these. Yeah. And it's more just putting this idea in their brain, and God knows in a meeting 1 year from now, they would have a meeting with Ford, and they can ask Ford, so what are you doing with this?
Yeah. I'm trying to look you guys up on LinkedIn before we fail for the session.
Yeah, because we can't exchange business cards really. So
I know.
There are quite a
I
lot of
know your
kids.
last name. Andrew, what's your last name?
Halt ALT. Dude, Kevin, I might actually. So my company, I'm with AECOM.
Okay.
But there's one guy in my office. His name's Dan Corey, and he heads our AECOM's autonomous vehicle division. And
Okay.
like every other week, we have a call and we have some speakers come in and talk about autonomous vehicles. So if you ever want to, I know it's like not quite like it's more you do more advocacy, we do more engineering. But if you're ever interested in
Oh,
sharing,
that's awesome.
I could definitely share your contact information. I think that.
Yeah. Do you know Suzanne Murtha?
Yes, it's a call with her. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I don't know her personally, but she's on the call every week with him.
Gotcha. Yeah, I know Suzanne. She's awesome. She's super intense, but she's awesome.
He is always young. It seems like. Yeah, no, I'll definitely bring it up to them. I'm sure it'd be a great perspective because like engineers do engineer stuff all the time. So I think that it'd be good to have that different perspective of like the more human and like the advocacy perspective of it, which is all related. So.
Yeah.
Are these like open to open like now? I guess they would be virtual. So are they open to people or not?
No, they're only for it's like an internal call, like a coordinator call for a company. So I'm sorry. Sid, when I work for AECOM, I'll try to I'll get you in.
What was your last name, Andrew?
Halt, H-A-L-T, like stop. Sid, is it your full name? Is your LinkedIn?
No. So I shared my LinkedIn profile to make it easier.
I see.
In the chat.
I see. Okay. Yeah, I will. I'll do that. But no, this is interesting. It was great talking to you guys.
Yeah. In Chicago, I know CTA is trying to install these pedestrian detection whatever, but all they do is they just like make a loud noise when they detect a pedestrian in vicinity. And I don't think we should like aim for that.
No.
There should be something better than just making a ping whenever a pedestrian is detected or whatever. It has like, so the way I understand it, I haven't seen it, they're just in like testing phase, but they would have speakers installed and similar to, like announcing bus is turning, similar to that, they would be like, bus approaching, stay away, bus approaching, stay away.